acabando con los enemigos, los seres que jamás hemos querido. Y yo soy el poeta de mil penas y tú eres mi condena. Y solo por
YouTube, welcome back to the vibes. Welcome back to my channel. It is I, Stacy J, the kid, the young OG, your hostess with the mostest. You already know, and we're back. For today's video, we are going to be reviewing the history of Aventura. I want to talk about a few things before we get into the video. I want to talk about what is bachata, the history of bachata, who are the OGs of bachata, and I also want to talk about the state of the music industry or the bachata industry before Aventura came into the picture, right? So boom. Bachata was originated in the countryside of Dominican Republic in the first half or the beginning of the 20th century. The genre of bachata was not something that was mainstream, and actually during the reign of Trujillo it was banned, it was like prohibited, and it was known to be like hood music, like ghetto music, like country music. In 1962, which was a year after Trujillo died, Jose Manuel Calderon recorded one of the first bachata ever songs, and it was called Borracho de Amor. But prior to that, there were people, you know, singing and dancing bachata. It's just that it wasn't mainstream, or at least it wasn't allowed to become mainstream. Jose Manuel Calderon went and he recorded Borracho de Amor officially for the first time, and then bachata was introduced to other people, and it still had a bad rep because of how Trujillo talked about it and sunned it for a long time, right? So boom, fast forward to the 1970s, bachata was popping, but it wasn't played on the radios. There were a lot of artists, there were a lot of bachateros, but they actually were not allowed to perform in high society venues, on TV, and it wasn't allowed to be played on the radio in the 1970s. So despite the fact that bachata was censored by Trujillo and other people and shit like that, it was still very, very popular. Los merengueros, the people who did merengue, they were allowed to go on TV and radio, and they were allowed to do high society venues, but bachata still, without being able to be played on the radios and on the TVs and any of that, it still outshined merengue. They still sold more records. Some of the bachateros, or the OGs that emerged from the 70s and the 80s era that we know today, were Marino Perez, Leonardo Paniagua, y Luis Segura. To the 90s now, bachata was popular. It was out of here. They tried to suppress it. They couldn't do it. It made it mainstream. It was on TV. It was on the radio. This was like in the beginning of the 90s. And this was actually thanks to the help of Juan Luis Guerra. He wasn't a bachatero. He was more like balada, slow R&B type music, but he had this one song he released in 1992 called Bachata Rosa, y esa canción Bachata Rosa no era una bachata, it wasn't a bachata to be exact, but by him releasing that song, it kind of like opened the ears for those people who didn't want it, who were like not receptive to bachata, and they heard it and they were like, oh, okay. So then after that, it was over. Bachata became mainstream, and then in the 90s is where we have Anthony Santos come in, and then in the early 2000s, here's where we have Aventura come. This is where we have the group. Prior to Aventura coming into the picture, there were no groups of men or women or anything like that singing bachata. It was just strictly older men. So for Aventura being a group of young boys who were Dominican but were born and raised in New York to sing bachata, it was like different. When Anthony Santos came into the industry in the 90s, he kind of changed the vibe of bachata, following and inspired by, like I said, the song that Juan Luis Guerra dropped in 1992, Bachata Rosa. Once they saw that he dropped a bachata, but it was kind of like different, like he introduced different instruments and different sounds, that opened the door for artists like Anthony Santos, and he introduced the merengue mixed with the bachata sound, and then boom, in the 2000s, here we have a group of young boys introducing rap, hip-hop, and techno and other sounds into bachata. So boom, that was just a quick little history lesson of bachata and where it comes from, and Dominican Republic and all this shit like that. Boom. So let's get into the video. You guys already know the vibe. If you smoke, roll up. If you drink, pour up. Throw on the LED lights and throw this video on your big screen, and let's get right into the video. I say, bitch, don't kill my vibe, my vibe, my vibe. I just wanna ride. I do have a little something. I do have a little something here in my cup, but I'm not really like drinking like for real. It was just a little something to have for the video, so I might as well just take a sip of that. My sister's gonna kill me because I keep leaving the tags under my cup, and she told me that I did that in my last video. Gracie, I'm gonna try next video. Alright, so this video that we are reviewing today is by Donde Hay Feria. Again, don't know who this is, never heard of them, can't recall them. The video came up, I think, randomly in my recommendations, so here we are. Shout out to that channel. Les recomiendo que busquen su romo porque esto se va a poner fuerte con toda esa bachata que vamos a escuchar ahora.
Los reyes de la bachata, con su veneno musical, han embriagado de pasión a sus fans. Los han hecho reír, bailar y llorar. Sus letras se han convertido en una verdadera obsesión donde nadie quiere ser el perdedor. El legado de Aventura es simplemente inmortal. Los inicios del grupo se remontan a 1994, cuando los hermanos Lenny y Max Santos conforman en el Bronx, Nueva York, el grupo Sueños. En 1995 se integran Romeo y Henry Santos. Con esto, el cuarteto pasa a llamarse Los Teenagers.
When I first saw the title of this album, I almost died, bro. The way they spelled teenagers, los teenagers, like it blows my mind.
Bajo este nombre publican en 1996 su primer álbum de nombre Trampa de Amor, cuyas canciones se clasifican en el género.
I did the research on this album and I realized that I never listened to this album, just like one or two songs, but this wasn't one of those albums that everyone knows. This was early Aventura.
Bachata dominicana tradicional. De este trabajo sobresalen los temas Trampa de Amor y la versión original de la popular melodía ¿Cuándo volverás? En 1999,
the outfits, I have no words. It's giving the evil guy from, what's the name of that movie? Good Burger? Mondo Burger guy. That's what these pants are giving me.
El grupo adopta oficialmente el nombre de Aventura y lanzan el 9 de noviembre la producción Generation X bajo el sello discográfico de Premium Latin Music.
I remember this album. This album was one of them. This was one of those albums. And as you can see, the album was titled Generation Next because they were the new generation of young men singing bachata. And like I mentioned before, their style of doing it was very different because yes, they were Dominican, but they were born and raised in New York. So their culture was different. They were doing songs that were mixed in English and Spanish and all types of different shit that was not done before. But also keep in mind, the bachata industry or the Dominican music industry wasn't born until the 1960s technically. In the 90s, this late 90s, early 2000s, the industry was still fairly new.
Dicho álbum ya se logran identificar los sonidos característicos de la bachata urbana de Aventura, sobresaliendo los temas La Novelita, No lo perdona Dios, Un poeta enamorado y las dos versiones de Cuándo volverás. Así es como desde la diáspora dominicana en Estados Unidos surge la bachata urbana, cuando este grupo comienza a experimentar con el Spanglish, frases en inglés y en español. Introducen la guitarra eléctrica pero con sonidos suaves y el contenido de sus líricas se vuelven más sociales.
Right, so he's explaining how different their bachata was compared to other artists that came before them. They really changed the game. They took the game to another level. Bachata prior to Aventura was, I don't want to say strictly, but it was mainly the parents, the grandparents, the people, the women that worked in the cabarets, the men who would sit there and lust over these women in the cabaret, would sit there and sing to them and shit. When Aventura came into the picture, they made this genre, what's the word I'm looking for, susceptible or acceptable, whatever it is, to the younger Latin generation. So prior to Aventura, if you went to a party of teenagers, they probably were not listening to bachata, but when Aventura dropped, you went to parties of teenagers or young adults, I promise you there was some Aventura playing.
Las mezclas que lograba Aventura eran únicas. Cada uno de los discos que publicaron son muy distintos uno del otro. Crearon un nuevo estilo musical. Jugaron con las influencias, las fusiones, el flamenco, el pop, el jazz, la música urbana y el árabe.
Yes, sir. This was a song that
El
took them
éxito
out
del
of there.
grupo llegó en 2002, cuando lanzó su disco We Broke the Rules, que contenía el tema Obsesión.
When they dropped this album, I remember everything so vividly. Unlike my other videos where I talk about the rappers, I always emphasize and let it be known that I wasn't present for the debut of a lot of rappers, for example, like Kanye West. But when it comes to Aventura, I was there. I was present. I was front line. When this album was released, I remember this album cover, they printed them into big posters. Like, I'm talking about big, big posters. And I remember all my cousins, shout out Yailin, my mom's friends, daughters, all of them, they all had these posters in their houses. And I just remember everyone being obsessed with these kids.
La fiebre de Aventura traspasó el Atlántico y llegó a Europa. Durante 16 semanas consecutivas, el sencillo Obsesión fue número 1 en Italia y el fenómeno se extendió a Rusia.
Number 1 in Italy. Are you listening to me? Number 1 in Italy for 16 weeks. Not even DR, not even America. Italy. Like, the records these kids broke, that's why the album was called We Broke the Rules, because they were doing things that were not done before, and of course they were being criticized and judged by it, and they didn't care. And you see the success that their first 2 albums had. So by this album, this is where they started to break records, selling out Madison Square Garden multiple times. They dropped, we're gonna get into it, but I just want you guys to keep an eye out and keep track of these records that these kids are breaking.
Austria, Francia, Alemania, España, Holanda, Bélgica, Suiza, Rumanía, Bulgaria e incluso Israel. De la misma producción también lograron fama los sencillos Todavía me amas, Enséñame a olvidar, Alexandra y 9 y 15.
That's that shit. This song, Hermanita, I love this song, and this is one of the things that I liked about Aventura, was that they dropped music, of course, about love. Ay, que mami, que yo te amo, que I love you, que ven conmigo. But they also dropped songs that touched on topics. So, for example, this song, Hermanita, is talking about basically his sister's going through an abusive relationship, and he's trying to talk sense into her. Like, it was kind of dark because at the end of the song, turns out his sister died because her abusive partner. Domestic violence is big in the Latin American thing. It's big. It gets nasty and disgusting. So seeing them talk about this, being young kids, it was interesting. And this wasn't the only topic they touched on. The group Aventura also dropped another song that talks about sexual harassment, where it tells the story of a little girl. I know it might sound like what the but these are subjects that happen in the Latin community, and more than often. So, as a child, I'm not really thinking about the message of the video. As I grew older, I understood the meanings of these songs that I'm talking about.
Llegó noviembre del año 2003 y Aventura lanza al mercado su cuarto álbum discográfico con el nombre de Love and Hate, Amor y Odio al Español, también bajo el sello Premium Latin Music, destacando los sencillos Hermanita y Llorar. Corría el año 2004 y el grupo Aventura lanza una producción en vivo llamada Unplugged, con 8 de sus grandes éxitos tales como Obsesión, Cuándo volverás y Enséñame a olvidar.
They would record their live performances and make an album out of it and then sell that as well. That's how fire they were. They would drop 2 albums with the same exact songs. Just one was studio, one was live. And see, you gotta remember, back in this era, this is the era where only real artists made it into the music industry before the music industry became what it was today. Today, a lot of artists can't do that. Like, I don't expect Drake to drop a live version and a studio version, because it's not gonna be the same. The rappers, they're gonna need their auto-tune. They're gonna need all of that. Back then, none of that was needed. It's just, this was real talent, real vocals, real pipes. Pause.
Para el año 2005 y consolidados como uno de los máximos exponentes de la música latina, Aventura publica su quinta producción de estudio denominada God's Project, o Proyecto de Dios, con los sencillos Un Beso, Angelito, La Boda y Ella y Yo. Este último en colaboración.
Hold on, stop. We gotta talk about Ella y Yo. First of all, this album, God's Project, fire. One of my favorite. This is a song that had all those bops. This collaboration specific, Don Omar and Romeo, was iconic, especially because there was this fake imaginary beef between Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, we're so similar, but yeah, we're very different. Like, we differ in minor things. We're similar but different. You feel me? But I don't think that we should beef. You know what I'm saying? So when this collab happened, first of all, it kind of like deaded that beef a little bit, but not really, because it kind of like arose now, a little competition arose. But the idea and the creative direction of this song was like that, you know, they're friends, they're sitting at a bar. Romeo is complaining to Don Omar about his girl, I believe so, while Don Omar is telling Romeo all about this new girl that he met. Don Omar admits to Romeo like, yo, I went out with your girl, and then Romeo was like, oh my god, I can't believe it, fuck you, fuck that bitch too. The way they collaborated in this song wasn't like a union, like, oh, Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic together for one. It was kind of like a little competition, because when they would perform this song live, what they would do is that usually Don Omar would bring him out as a surprise guest, or Romeo would bring out Don Omar as a surprise guest, and they would like fake fight on the stage, like what, and they would act out the song. It was genius. It was just genius. And as an artist, I love to see artists put some thought and some creative juices, some storyline into a song. You know what I'm saying? Nowadays we have all these, oh my god, all these quick 1-minute songs with no meaning behind it. I'm not even gonna get into that topic, but this song was iconic. It was.
Con la estrella del reggaetón, Don Omar.
Tú y yo durmiendo con los enemigos, los seres que jamás hemos querido.
A finales del año 2006 lanzan una gran producción en vivo llamada Kings of Bachata Live, que incluía 2 discos y un DVD, destacando temas como Los Infieles, Mi Corazoncito y El Perdedor, mismos que recibieron gran reconocimiento en muchos países hispanohablantes y posiciones privilegiadas en las listas Billboard.
Mi Corazoncito, Dile al Amor were songs that were very mainstream, very hot, you know, Hotline Bling, very, you're everything that I need. It's very much God's plan. Like, it was very mainstream, and it wasn't one of my favorites.
Kings of Bachata, Sold Out at Madison Square Garden, es el 8º álbum y el tercero en vivo lanzado por Aventura. El concierto se agotó y tuvo lugar el 1 de septiembre de 2007 en el Madison Square Garden. Un DVD del concierto se lanzó el 13 de noviembre de ese mismo año.
Of course, an ad.
The Lost, como su nombre lo indica, es el último álbum de estudio de Aventura. Fue lanzado al mercado bajo los sellos de Premium Latin Music y Sony Latin Music.
I remember when this was announced, I honestly and truly thought that they were capping. Like, I thought that they were going to drop this album, see the success that it had, and then decide not to break up. But they really broke up. And for a long time, I didn't know why they broke up. I was doing some research prior to shooting this video, and I saw that the reason why Aventura broke up, and hear me, if this is true, I'm going to be so mad. They broke up because Henry wanted a solo career.
Out of pocket for that shit. Way out of pocket. What do you gain from that?
Imagine Destiny's Child breaking up because Michelle wanted a solo career. Not even because Beyonce wanted one, but because one of the 2 girls in the back. And for those of you who know Henry Santos, yes, he sung and he had a few leading songs and here and there, but he was backup. He was more like an ad-lib. He was more like a double voice. Dominicans are very big on when they perform, they like to have a second person with them on stage to, you know, double up the voices for them. So Henry was very much that. I don't want to be shady and take away from his talent, because hello, he can write and he can sing. We know that. But for them to break up because Henry wanted a solo career is disgusting and is sickening to me. And I know that he's mad that he fumbled the bag.
Un 9 de junio de 2009. Cuenta con 18 temas y colaboraciones con diversos artistas. The Lost debutó en el número 5 en la lista Billboard 200 en Estados Unidos. con ventas de 47,000 unidades, posicionándose como la mejor de todos los tiempos. El álbum también llegó al número 1
one of my
en la
all-time
lista
favorite
Top
Aventura
Latin
songs.
Charts, donde se convirtió en su primera aparición en las 4 principales del Top Chart. El grupo solamente había estado 3 veces en el 5º lugar. Gracias a su último proyecto, ya ha recibido 2 discos de platino por vender más de 200,000 copias en los Estados Unidos. De esta última producción se desprendieron los sencillos Por un segundo, Dile al amor, Su veneno y All Up to You.
Not all up to you, okay.
Era la edición número 52 del Festival Internacional de la Canción Viña del Mar, y el 11 de febrero de 2011 el grupo Aventura se presenta en esas tierras chilenas con éxito total, llevándose la antorcha de plata, antorcha de oro, gaviota de plata y gaviota de oro.
Sheesh.
2 meses después la agrupación anunció oficialmente su separación. Ya como solista, Romeo.
So really quickly, in this part of the video, they talk about the solo career of Romeo Santos, which is great and it's amazing, but I realized that he doesn't really touch on what happened with the other guys. Henry, Max, and Lenny. Right after they announced the separation of the group, Lenny and Max created their own bachata group called Vena with Steve from Extreme. For those of you who know that Extreme was another group of bachata that came out after Aventura. Like, you know, it got somewhere, like they charted, they popped off, it hit the billboards, you feel me? But it wasn't nothing like what Romeo did, like what we're about to see. Henry continues his solo career. He drops some shit. He also debuts billboards. You feel me? With radio. Fast forward 2014. He has a few issues with his management team. The label he signed to is dissolved. He makes his own label. Last time he released was 2017. The other guys, they broke up around the same time, 2014. They broke up Vena because of some management issues, and also because Steve from Extreme wanted his own solo career. They released their last song, El Final, in December of 2014, El Grupo Vena, with Lenny and Max and Steve from Extreme. Then they broke up, and then Lenny and Max, they went to go do their own thing. One of them wanted to do rapping, the other one wanted to do producing, and Henry continued with, you know, his own label that he created. And like I said, from my research, last time he dropped or did anything musical was 2018. I could be wrong. So let's continue now on to what Romeo did after the group broke up.
Santos publica en el mes de mayo su primer sencillo titulado You, de su primer álbum Fórmula. En 2012 agotó entradas en el Madison Square Garden de Nueva York. El concierto fue lanzado en CD-DVD como un álbum en vivo. En 2013, su álbum Fórmula Volumen 1 recibió una nominación al Grammy por Mejor Álbum Latino Tropical. En ese mismo año hizo acto de presencia como solista en la edición 54 del Festival de Viña del Mar.
Qué bien te ves.
Para 2014, Romeo lanza la producción Fórmula Volumen 2, convirtiéndose en el álbum latino.
That album, Formula Volume 1 and Formula Volume 2, is just fire after fire. One thing that I do want to say when it comes to Aventura and Romeo Santos as an individual, as a solo artist, when they or he drops our albums, it's no skips. And when I say no skips, like, I don't want you to think that I'm exaggerating because I like the group and because I'm Dominican. No, I legitimately mean literally, zero skips. Like, cuando esa gente sueltan un álbum, son todas las canciones que dan, son todas, no, eso no dice que la número 5 suena, que la número 8 sonó, no, ahí suenan todas.
Más vendido en el primer semestre del año. En 2017,
I wasn't a fan of this
Romeo
song
Santos
at all.
graba su tercer álbum de estudio como solista titulado Golden,
This
logrando la
album was fire.
nominación
When he dropped his album, he actually had the Empire State Building in New York light up gold.
a los Billboard Music Awards y el premio Videoclip Award al mejor video de bachata por Imitadora. En el álbum,
You want to know one thing, actually? Now that he's talking about that he has the award for best music videos, I love Aventura. I love what they stand for. I love what he's done. I respect him. I admire him. I give him the credit, the flowers, right? Boom, boom, boom. There's only one issue that I have with Romeo Santos. Every music video that he does, the women that he chooses to be like the lead or the women of the video is always of white Latina.
Yup.
And that's a big problem for me when it comes to my Latinos and my Hispanics. When you turn on Telemundo or Univision or any Spanish channel, you're not going to see Spanish people that look like me. Still, in 2022, we're not represented how we're supposed to. And with Romeo, this is the only problem that I have with him. And something that I see in the Latin music industry is that you guys want to succeed off the back of the urban Dominican culture, que el dembow, que el reggaeton, que el saoco, que el flow, ¿verdad? But when it comes to represent us for who we truly fucking are, is a problem.
You have done that bitch for too many times too long. Lock that bitch up. Lock it up. Come with something new. Do something fucking different.
Cast appropriately for your music videos. Let's represent Dominicans for who they truly are. And I'm not saying that the women that you use are not, adequate, because at the end of the day, Dominicans look like this that you see in the video. They look like that, but they also look like me. I just wish that the Latin music industry was better at that, at the representation.
Can I lie? Can I lie? Can I fucking lie?
But that's the one problem that I have with Romeo Santos.
Con Juan Luis Guerra, Ozuna, Daddy Yankee y Julio Iglesias.
I mean, look at all these music videos. You don't really see women that look like me.
La historia de Aventura no podía terminar ahí, y años más tarde, en 2016, se juntan para promocionar un disco recopilatorio y una mini gira de conciertos por Estados Unidos e Hispanoamérica. En abril de 2019 lanzan la canción Inmortal del álbum Utopía de Romeo
This
Santos.
album was iconic.
Y en ese mismo mes,
the concept was amazing. Each song he did it with the bachata OG. That's like Kodak Black dropping an album and he does a song with Trina, does a song with Trick Daddy, does one song with Gunplay, with the Miami Legends. That's kind of what he did, but with the bachata legends. And then the last song, of course, was a secret song with the group Aventura. For every song of the album, he had a music video, and the music video featured the bachata legend. And that's another thing that I like about Romeo, is that he's constantly shedding light and giving their flowers and the credits to the people who came before him. And he constantly is always saying, yo, these people came before me. My inspiration comes from them. I get my style, my swag, everything is from them. And he's constantly saying that. And with this album, he definitely let it be known and show that respect to these legends that came before him.
El premio del Artista Tropical del Año, dúo o grupo en los Billboard Music Awards. En el mes de septiembre, Romeo logra sold out en el Midlife de Nueva York, siendo el primer concierto de su gira Utopía en la que participó Aventura. Para este año 2020, Aventura se embarca en la gira Inmortal, dando inicio con 4 fechas en la ciudad de Los Ángeles, California.
Con los enemigos, los seres que jamás hemos querido. Y yo soy el poeta de mil penas, y tú eres mi condena. Y solo por un beso, con ella soy feliz.
Hasta aquí la historia de Lenny, Max, Henry y Romeo Santos, el grupo Aventura, los reyes de la bachata.
Alright, that was the video. I can't believe this video was 10 minutes long, but the footage says 52 minutes. I need to stop talking. But you guys, that was the video. Let me take this off. That was the video. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, to like the video. The thumbs up really, really helps. But thank you for watching. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Please comment down below any suggestions if you guys want me to review any albums, any artists, or any documentaries or anything like that specific, and let me know. Follow me on Instagram at stacyjaytv. Subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, and thank you for stopping by. I will see you in the next video next time.